So why is property investing good?
This thought of investment in property came to mind when I started just accompany my aunt in collecting. I started to see like every month without working, right, they start paying you money and things like that. Then like, ooh, that must be sweet. Then when I start reading Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was pretty certain. And that time there was no other alternatives. Like we need to play stocks, right? Back then when I was investing in stock, I need to go to TV Tiga, then click don't know what button, then go to the yellow, green, blue and RGB screen. Then you see whether increase price or not. Then I need to call the remisier. Then I still need to use my mom's name to buy stocks. So it was so troublesome. And when I understood my aunt how they did it, my uncle was doing it, so it was only natural for me to do it. When I go in further, and after it's like my 10th year ever since my first property already. So I bought one, it's like 22, 23. So now it's already 10 years. And I've seen the benefit to reap from that decision. It's basically leverage lah. Banks gives you money up to 90% in investment. Say if I were to tell the bank today, dear bank, I want to buy Bitcoin. This is my income statement. This is my income proof. Please loan me money. They couldn't care less lah. But then if you tell them about properties, right, then they, okay, 90% they just give you, right? Then why don't use it? Yes, stocks you have the margin of 5 times or 3 times. But to me, in one simple mindset as well, I would say demand for properties will never end. How do I put it? Is that, for example, now you have 2 phones. Then I give you 1 more phone, 3 phones, 4 phones, 5 phones. You will call it quit already. I don't need actually so many phones. I will just need 2 of the best phones will do. But if I will give you properties, right, 2 properties, 3 properties, 4 properties, there's infinite demand for properties actually. So people won't complain having too many houses. Therefore, I was pretty certain. That's why I was very, very bullish. I was buying properties almost every year until I stumped into that mistake that I mentioned just now. And I came back from it. Immediately when I came back from it, I should buy another one already. That's how dedicated I am towards this industry lah.
So we talk about the demand for property. So, and looking at the supply of properties out there, looking at how it's, it kind of seems like supply is more than demand, or, then do you think like, will property prices fall?
Looked at it in a very simple manner lah. So yes, if you look into economics, right, property prices fall. A lot of people may say that. And if you look into their justification, right, it's because it's based on the SPA price that they bought. So if they buy new properties, it's often fluffed up. It's often be inflated to include all the premiums or the goodies, right? The discount, 10% discount, then the kitchen cabinet, the MOT, the lawyer fee, the whatever, right? So when they get the house keys after 4 years, the price dropped below the SPA price. So they complain that, hey, I'm not making money. Hello, you already made money, okay? You already used up that money for your vacation already, don't forget. So it's a very easy and a popular statement that is often hanged around people's mouth lah. It's very cool because you don't see people tell everybody they make money on properties. There will be nobody sane walking around, hey, I make a lot of money in property, I make a lot of money in property, unless they want you to attend their course lah. So it's a very different story lah. Then if you look into demand, I think in base, like Mont Kiara, if you look into it, right, it's one of the highest dense area, but then demand for space is still ultra high. Bangsa South as well, KLCC as well. I think if you follow the science and research for location, then you will start to gauge whether supply versus demand, it's not a general statement. It cannot be just a blanket statement that covers everywhere. Yeah. So I don't think it's fair, because now we are in the property world right now, we are talking about bullish market that is coming soon because of the property that is too high in supply. This statement was in the newspaper for the past 3 to 4 years, right? A lot of developers kind of like slow down in their planning for new products. But then that 6 months of moratorium happened, the interest rate gone so low, and government is actually heavily pushing properties right now. The demand suddenly shoot so high, there will be a shortage for I think like 3 to 4 years, because for a developer to plan and build something out, right, it will take at least 5 years. So there will be the the bullish. So that's why personally I bought a property during MCO. So that's how positive I have, and that's how positive I am towards the property outlook.
Interesting. All right. So we kind of talked about it earlier, but when should someone start looking for their first property, in your opinion?
This changed across the channel, but generally people only look for properties when the man is about to propose to the girlfriend.
Yeah, very, very common.
So that's the habit and culture issue. Yeah, so that's the habit and culture that we have in Malaysia. Also Asian, right? And that's
Yes.
also part of the reason why there will always be demand for property one. No matter how successful you are, you don't have a property, you are still not deemed as matured or successful one. Unfortunately, in this current belief that we have. So ideally, I would encourage people to really figure out your life and have 6 months of emergency fund first. So when I say figure out your life means that when I got my first job, it may not necessarily be my dream job. And there will always be that itch whether to switch industry or not. Can I do things myself? Actually, I don't like engineering. I know I'm good at it, but I just absolutely hate it. I like Pokemon cards instead. So can you make money or a channel out of a Pokemon card hobby? And if that is possible, then if you were to tie yourself in even when you were like 40, 50 years old later, you are successful in terms of the eye of the public where you have a property and things like that, you will still look back in regret. What if I've started that channel and it may grow tremendously and I'm still happy and make money and I still make money at the same time? That's absolutely possible, right? So this is when the current context for youngsters at this current age and time, technology is really limitless. So I would say kind of consider to explore a little bit further on yourself first before committing to a 35 years loan. The only reason why a lot of people jump into it immediately because of the FOMO syndrome. They see their cousins buy already, then the auntie will start, you see, my son buy already, you haven't buy. So a lot of people then fall into this spec where they try to buy property just to impress others. They have no clear intention on what to do with it. That's why they will just pay the installment full of hatred every month. And they will just have like perasaan dengki terhadap property. Wow, this one a lot. It's really like, then even some parents offered to pay the 10% for their children, then they will just pay the installment. And that created a huge glitch in between their relationship. To me, it's like the best thing ever that can ever happen, right? But then to them, it's a whole different generation. Because of me paying the down payment the installment every month, I cannot take time off my work to pursue this passion of mine. Because this generation has more freedom and they are in more abundance compared to their parents to pursue what they are passionate about. They have this freedom. Our parent generation don't have bo bian lah. But then I would really tell them that to not go into property so early until you figure out yourself while establishing your emergency fund up to 6 months.
All right. So your advice would be to get the emergency funding for 6 months and then, start looking at property that you want. And so what kind of property can a home buyer afford?
Basically anything. When you listen to people saying that, hey, there's no property below 300,000, right? Actually, you go iProperty or Property Guru or Prop Social. It's a lot just that you don't want to stay only, because you're fancy.
That's very true.
So a lot of people thought that, fresh grad cannot afford property, right? First of all, you shouldn't be affording a property when you are a fresh graduate. Let's put it that way. That's why there's this entitlement, right, of the young people coming out, and it's very convenient to just blame the market, right, for the income being the same or lower compared to their parents. So like all these youngsters that often come to me, right, hey, the company is not paying enough because you're not doing enough, obviously, right? Which boss wouldn't want a person that can earn a lot of money? So that's the entitlement that I'm often encountered with. So I really see a lot of this kind of email and I try to understand somewhat of the root cause is that conversation around properties, right? It's not established during dinner conversations. It's somewhat like a taboo in certain families as well. Like you cannot ask people how many properties they have. It's so rude. It's like asking people how much do they make. then you see this uncle very cool and things like that, right? But the house is on loan, the car is on loan, the watch also on loan, the iPhone also on installment. But then that became like I must have all these objects in order to be successful. So when we talk about like how or when or what kind of properties can people afford, the lowest you can go for low cost is like 60,000, 42,000, but you are too fancy to stay in them. Then I would say that a comfortable figure is to be within a 3 to 5,000. I think that's the right range. Also, because this generation stays in their parents' house first, so that again creates a very direct comparison to their parents' house. I'm staying in a CBD now. Then I buy a property for what, right? I want to move in for what? Then to me, then get an investment unit first, no? So if you start positioning your mindset that way, good property, I think like just for example, like Goodyear Courts in Subang Jaya is still at 280,000, 260,000. Rental can be up to 1,500, which is like ROI positive. Really, you can pay up maintenance, pay up utilities, and still have surplus that you can call passive income. Just that other people don't want to go and do that homework. Conveniently read newspaper, property price too high. They just go around and brag. So no need to buy. It's a very convenient excuse of not buying.
Yeah, I think you also pointed out a very good point, which is, this kind of like property purchase and, talking about like even about finances is not really brought to the table in a family dinner. They're not being discussed. They're not being talked about. But when like youngsters grow up to the society, they're being taught that, you need to buy a property before you can get a girl or before you can be called successful. So that is, that is the gap that we are all talking about, right?
But that's like something that I wish all men, unfortunately, men, right, to understand. We need to have money. So it's way easier because 90% of dispute or argument between spouse, right, often revolves around money. Right? But then, like when you just think about like, you just fresh grad, you come out, then what people ask you to do? Get married, or get a property, get a car, get a property, get married, have kids. Then people don't tell you about the wedding. People don't tell you about home furnishing. People don't tell you about insurance. The amount of money to have at that expense, right, is just tremendously scary. I would put the word scary. And if you are not taught or you're not knowledgeable or you're not informed about it, it can get pretty overwhelming. Like now when you set up a family, only to know that, I need a house, right? And every month I need to pay 3,000 because that's the dream house that my wife wants. But my income currently is only 4,000. Do I go for it? Then you start comparing the installment amount versus the love for her.
It shouldn't be compared that way, right?
You cannot compare love one, right? the one in the lifetime. So you can just work harder as a man. You must work harder. Then all this gone case lah. So the benefit of my role as a YouTuber, right? I get all this access of, they just voice their concerns and express their dissatisfaction to me, and I get this all firsthand. And it's pretty brutal when you look at this kind of emails, right? Couples buying their dream home as their first, and then break up just because the guy keeps paying the interest for the loan with then no money to actually celebrate birthdays in a more fancy manner. Then that's why break up. Then now when the house is completed, the one side don't want to pay for the house. Then what can they do? Basically, you are kind of screwed, to be very honest. So now you need to pay for a property that is actually shared with the other half that you don't really love anymore. Then like whatever eternity love concept that you had was all wrong. What can you do now?
And hopes and dreams all broken, right?
Then just because of that loan, they didn't take that opportunity that was offered between that period to pursue whatever they really like, or they could have excelled in that because they needed the safety net to be in. Too many of these kind of stories. That's why properties, when you really are confirmed, you're sure you want to climb the corporate ladder, or you are sure of your income ability, right? Only you start gaining into it, because out of love, right? Wow, tricky.
I think actually like communication is extremely important, and on top of that, like planning is something that people kind of neglected sometimes. So we all know that like when it comes to different life stages, you will need money for certain things. Like you need money to build a home, you need to buy your own property, you need to pay for your own insurance, you need to pay taxes and all these things. If you can actually plan in advance and with the like open communication with your with your loved ones, I think all these things can be, can be made easier.
Yep, definitely.
Then it leads to we talk about buying property. So do people actually need to use a property agent?
There's 4 ways in buying properties lah. So generally, we can directly buy from the developer. This is what we call new property sales. No property agent required. Next would be the sub-sale market. So sub-sale market, yes, you will need one property agent unless you directly knows the owner and you two just directly deal with a lawyer. I think you can also somewhat skip the property agent, but don't undercut lah. So be very honorable and things like that. Number 3 is auction market. Okay, auction market, you can directly go into the auction house or an auctioneer, or you can go through an agent that feeds you information about the auction that is about to go on. Then I think the 4th one is bulk purchasing. So this is a little bit on a gray area. I'll just put it out there where there are groups of people who comes together and they pressurize developers for unsold units. So see which developer is more hungry for sales just to survive, right? Then they will bargain on a better deal in bulk. So let's say the price of buying one is definitely different from the price of buying 200 units of apartments. With that, you don't need a property agent as well. You just need to go through this group purchase leader or whatsoever you call it. So most of the time, a lot of property gurus use talks as the funnel to drive people into this kind of purchase. Nothing wrong with that, it's just business. And if you're more advanced, you can apply land from government, but I think that's out of hands of normal consumers. Very textbook answer though.
Yeah, kind of. So I was just to ask, do you think there are certain pros and cons of buying through a property agent?
I think now it's way better, means that it's more regulated. Okay, but I always look at why and what's the attractive point of being an agent is I can make transactions without bearing the consequences. So I can tell you how tremendously excellent this investment choice is. And once you sign the papers, you will never see me ever again. Then when the product is shitty or the product is not as per what promised, the consumers will automatically go to the developer directly. They will not tell the agent, hey, why you sell me this kind of bullshit or whatsoever, right? It doesn't work that way. But then you come to think of it, agents' fees are 2 to 3% in the market. And if for project-based, where they just deal with the developer directly, it can be up to 10%, 8 to 10% per unit. So that's why it's very motivating, and you can see how driven real estate agents are. Nothing wrong with that. Again, it's just like sales. That's the nature of sales. We want money.
Yep.
But when you talk about accountability and things like that, then I would say to get from the developer's salesperson directly better, because they are still liable for whatever they say. So let's say when the whatever expected outcome when you get your keys, right? The agent say this one got one. The difference between a sales staff of the developer versus a property agent then will be different. Meaning that one is not our party. So whatever he say, right, does not represent what the developers say. But when you buy directly from a salesperson, right, then it carries more weight. But I think this is also due to the stigma that we have for property agents. So I always believe that there will be good doctors, bad doctors. There will be excellent real estate agents, and wish they didn't exist kind of property agents, right? So I think it's a measure to that. So it's up to you to really gauge. But when you come to it, right, you don't really need an excellent service property agent, right? Because what they really do is really just providing you information. They're just giving you access to the property. That unfortunately became the biggest problem for real estate agents right now. All youngsters coming in hoping that they can buy their BMs and they can go to their holiday trips and things like that, right? Expecting that sales can be done very, very easily. But when consumers are getting more and more informed, the games is different.
Exactly.
Also partially thanks to them, right? My channel grew a lot because a lot of people are just sick and tired of going through that sales pitch. So where they go online and see me.